Hello everyone, my name's Alex Ullman, your nerd to the core, and today I'm going to be your Commander Dad, talking to you a little bit about how I like to play Commander. And today I'm going to start with a card and a deck that's really important to me. This is my Mavinda Student's Advocate deck. Mavinda is a legendary creature bird advisor from Strixhaven with flying for 2 and a white. It's a 2/3. You may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. If that spell doesn't target a creature you control, it costs 8 generic mana more to cast. This way, if that spell would be put into a graveyard, exile it instead, and you can activate this ability only once each turn. Now, Mavinda tells a story, and that story is one I do every day in my job, working in a student union, working with students. And that is a story of it's so much easier if you're going to do something for yourself than have someone else do it for you. When Mavinda wants you to do something for yourself, target yourself with a spell from the graveyard. It makes it so much easier to do. But if I have to come in, or Mavinda has to come in and do something that isn't just for you, but is for everyone, like casting a board wipe like a Day of Judgment that destroys all creatures, it's going to cost you a lot more. And the story this card tells is fantastic. You do it yourself, it's so much easier. And so I built Mavinda based around this ability, but also around taking creatures in and out of play, a blink deck. It is mono white blink. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to use Mavinda's ability to recast cards from my graveyard to generate value. But on top of that, it's also a very tricksy deck. There's a lot of play to it, and we're going to show you some of those cards. I pulled out about 16 cards here that talk about how the deck works. So we're going to start with some of the blink cards in that package. And the most basic one of that is Cloud Shift. Exile target creature you control for a white, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. You can do this once, you can do this in response to removal. It allows you to have a lot of different play to the deck, and this deck is loaded with blink effects. There's Scroll Shift, there's many more that just decide to take a creature out of play and bring it back. What creatures do you want to do that with? Well, you have a lot of cantrip creatures that will generate value when they enter the battlefield in the material of a card. Wall of Omens is 1 and a white for a creature wall with Defender, and when it enters, you draw a card. You do this with a blink effect, and Mavinda out, you can draw 2-3 cards per turn cycle. It might not seem like a lot, but it can really keep the deck flowing, keep things moving forward. But then where you can get really tricky is with a card templated like Fiend Hunter. Now, Fiend Hunter is a card from Innistrad, so at this point it's kind of old, kind of like me. Fiend Hunter for 1 white is a human cleric 1/3. Now it has 2 separate triggers. The first is when it enters the battlefield, you may exile another target creature. When Fiend Hunter leaves the battlefield, return the exiled creature to the battlefield under its owner's control. In other words, it has 2 separate triggers. They don't do this anymore. Cards like Banishing Light are 1 trigger. But what you can do is you can have Fiend Hunter enter the battlefield and put its enter trigger on the stack. And then you can cast Cloud Shift on it, having it leave play. So that leaves trigger goes on the stack, but there's nothing to return. So then when Fiend Hunter comes back in, it has completely exiled the creature with the first target, can take another creature out with the second target temporarily, then it's gone for good. So this is kind of the core engine of the deck. What else does the deck do? Well, the deck likes to play with Mavinda's ability to target creatures. So what we have here are 3 spells that deal with targeting your own creatures in really interesting ways. The first 2 are protection spells. You have Clever Concealment, 2 white for an instant with Convoke. That means you can tap your creatures to help cast these spells. And any number of target non-land permanents you control phase out. Divine Resilience is a white for an instant with Kicker, 2 and a white. Target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. If this spell was kicked, instead any number of target creatures you control gain indestructible instead. These 2 cards can protect your board, protect your creatures, do all sorts of things, and Mavinda lets you cast them a second time. That is key. You are getting double use out of both of these spells. Fell the Mighty is interesting because it's a board wipe that cares about targeting a creature you control. Destroy all creatures with power greater than target creature's power. So if I've wiped the board, and then I have Fell the Mighty in my graveyard, and I have Mavinda on board, well, I can just target Mavinda with my Fell the Mighty. And what does that mean? It means everything with power 3 or more goes away. This deck is filled with mostly small creatures, so I'm largely immune to it, but your board, it's gone. Next up we have some cards that also play with the idea of targeting. These are modal spells. Each of these have a mode that targets creatures I control, but also modes that target other things. So Valorous Stance can make one of my creatures indestructible. 1 and a white, choose 1. target creature gains indestructible until end of turn, or destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater. I can use the front side to take out one of your threats, but then I can use the back end of it, the Mavinda end, to protect one of my creatures. Fantastic card. Dawn Charm is a charm, 3 different modes, 1 and a white for an instant, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn, counter target spell that targets you, but the key one is regenerate target creature. So I can take out a combat, make it like it didn't happen, counter a spell that's going to target me, or I can use it from the graveyard with Mavinda to regenerate a creature that's about to die. Fantastic little option, lots of play. I keep coming back to that idea of play. I love games of Commander where I actually do something. I don't necessarily have to do everything. I don't have to win, but I have to feel like I engaged with the game in some way. And if I do that, I feel like I got my time's worth. All these cards so far, they can play the game in some way. They can change the texture of the game. And when you're sitting down to invest an hour and a half of your time after a long day of work, isn't that what you want? Just to have a good time with some friends? These last 2 cards here, before I get to this big pile, are kind of the reactive part of the deck. Part of what makes Mavinda's ability so strong is not only can I generate value, but I can do so in a way that can change, like I said, the texture of the game. Selfless Squire has a strong enters trigger. It is a 3 and a white for a 1/1 human soldier with flash, and when it enters the battlefield, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you this turn. Whenever damage that would be dealt to you is prevented, put that many counters on Selfless Squire. So if someone decides that, you know what, game's over, I want to attack me. They want to attack me. Well, I can just flash this in. And then suddenly I have a huge threat that I can crack back for the win. And with all the cloud shift effects, with cards like Ephemerate in the deck, I can do that over and over again and make a huge Selfless Squire that can take out the table. Now, this one is a weird one. It's not at the best in this deck, but I love it anyway. It's called Acolyte's Reward. It's from Born of the Gods. And for 1 and a white, we have an instant that says prevent the next X damage that would be dealt to you this turn, where X is your devotion to white. Dealt to target creature this turn. If damage is prevented this way, Acolyte Rewards deals that much damage to target creature or player. So late in the game, if you have a board with lots of white devotion, white color pips on the board, you can prevent a huge attack by blocking and then throwing that damage back at someone. I have won more than my fair share of games by pointing Acolyte's Reward at a creature coming at me or at the owner's face. Now, what's this pile? Mavinda, as I've described, is built on a lot of value creatures and a lot of spells that are protective, but not so much offense. So this pile here are the ways we win the game. First, we have this prowess package. We have Aligned Heart, which is not really prowess, and Monastery Mentor. Aligned Heart is an enchantment from Dragons of Tarkir Commander, which has Flurry. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put a rally counter on this enchantment, then create a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess for each rally counter on it. Well, Mavinda makes it really easy to cast 2 spells per turn. Monastery Mentor is the original, 2 and a white for a 2/2 human monk with prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put one of those monk tokens into play. This allows the deck to go wide. It allows the deck to put out a lot of 1/1s that will grow when you cast your spells. Late in the game, you are going to have a bunch of cheap instants to cast. This turns them into damage threats. Then we have a nice little randomation package. It wouldn't be a deck for me if it didn't have something to do with the graveyard. We have a Marry the Skyrune, which says when I have 7 planes in play and a Marry on the battlefield, during my upkeep I can return a creature from the graveyard to the battlefield. Sun Titan, 4 white for a 6/6 with Vigilance. When it enters or attacks, I may return target permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. Marry a Shepherd, 5 white for a 4/4 Flying Angel. And Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under my control, I may return a non-land permanent card from my graveyard to my hand. But if it was a Plains, in my mono white deck, I can return that permanent to the battlefield instead. Late in the game, middle of the game, I'm starting to generate a lot of value, not just for my spells, but for my creatures and even my land drops as well, which is, you want to play your lands, right? That's how you win the game, by hitting your land drops. This deck rewards you for that. And finally, wouldn't be one of my decks without some real graveyard shenanigans. So we have Karmic Guide and Revelark here. Now, these two can create an unbound loop with a sacrifice outlet, and I have one in here, but it's not really how I like to win the game. Karmic Guide is a 3 white angel spirit with flying and protection from black and echo. So that means you have to pay its mana value the turn after, 3 white during the upkeep after it comes into play, or else it goes away. When Karmic Guide comes into play, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Revelark is 4 and a white for creature elemental, 4/3 flying. When Revelark leaves play, return up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from the graveyard to play, and it has Evoke for 5 and a white. So you can play it for 5 and a white, and it sacrifices itself, and then it returns those creatures to play. So with these two, you can just bounce them back and forth, and each time you're getting another one back. And with that, you can generate an unbound loop with a card in this deck called Blasting Station, which is 3 generic mana for an artifact that says tap to sacrifice a creature to deal a damage to a target. But whenever a creature dies, you can untap Blasting Station. So that means no matter what, you're able to do this loop and deal unbound damage to your opponents. So that's my Mavinda Student's Advocate deck. It's a blink deck, it's a reanimation deck, it's a deck that wants to throw the punches that are thrown at you back at the opponent. Tell me what you think. What cards do you look for to play the game, to play against your opponents? You can find me at Nerd to the Core on Blue Sky or nerdtothecore.com. And don't forget to play your land drops. Have a good night.